This is a 2016 Jeep Cherokee 2.4 4-cylinder front-wheel drive brake booster replacement. It doesn't have any brakes at all. This has to be undone. So far, what we have taken off, we've got the battery out, of course, the fuse box, which is here. These have to come off. You only have 1, 3, 4, and 5. These are 10 millimeter. This doesn't have to come off at all. 7 millimeter, 7 millimeter, 7 millimeter. Then you got two little tabs that hold them on. One is here, one is on the other side. You pull it up after taking those hot wires off. These plugs should disconnect. If they don't, you can lightly tap the end of these bolts and it'll drop the wiring harness out from underneath. The next thing that we've started on, of course, you see she's taking the computer out of here just to be able to give ourselves a little bit more wiggle room. In order to get this brake booster out, the ABS has to come out, the master cylinder has to come out. Alright, so what I was saying was the computer has to come out. There's 3 10 millimeter nuts that hold it on, and then the plug-ins. The plug-ins are very finicky, so be careful when removing them. Make sure to hold the plug in place on the black casing. I'll show that in just a second. Make sure that stays out of the weather. Alright, so this casing right here has to hold on. You have to hold on to it, sorry, as you're pulling this up. That way these two slides can move down, or the opposite way around whenever you go putting it back on. The battery tray, so far, we haven't found all of the bolts that actually hold it on. There's one here so far, and I believe there's another one in the front up there that holds it on. These lines are 12 millimeter. Use a line wrench. The two that go here run directly back over to the master cylinder. Those are also 12 millimeter. Everything on this is 12 millimeter, this anyways. So really remove these two lines first. That way it's easier to be able to gain access to these lines. Remove these, start from front, work your way back. Kind of hard to screw these up, but they have been screwed up in the past. These lines are 2 different sizes. One goes to the front, one goes to the back. Disconnect the plug-in for the ABS pump. And you see, this is the reason why we're taking the battery box out, because the 2 bolts that hold this on are up under here. You can't gain access to it because the wiring harness is in the way, and she runs up under the battery box. Alright, I'm back with you. So what I did just now to be able to make this a little bit easier, instead of having to take the whole entire inner fender well out as well as all the clips, I cut a little section out, and right there is a 10 millimeter that holds that battery tray. I have a long socket as well as quarter drive or 3/8 drive, whichever one I decide on using, to be able to take it loose. And so far that is all I see that holds this in. I'll poke around over on that side and then feel around over here on this side and see if I find any other bolts. I don't feel any yet. That doesn't mean that there's not one there, so I'll look around and then post an update. The next thing I've done is removed this panel here that holds the computer. I may very well put that back on the computer, that way it'll all stay together. So I have felt around under the whole entire thing, including the side over here. the one bolt that I just took out mounts the tray to the tank for the washer fluid. All of the wiring harnesses are loose. Oh, I found it. It's underneath right here along the frame rail. So it runs this section. The bolt goes that way. It is a 13 mil. I'm not sure if there's one further back. I can't really get my hand in there to be able to tell. So I would say probably this is the last one, because it does slightly move. Once this is out, this wiring harness can be pulled over a little bit. Then you can get back here to these. This is 13 millimeter, and there may very well be two of those. I'll know for sure once the wiring harness is removed, but in the event that I don't continue this video, make sure to double check this area right here. As you can see the one bolt that holds the ABS on, but you can't see the other one. This master cylinder is held on with 13 millimeter as well. As soon as those bolts come out, or those nuts come off, that master cylinder will slide forward. This is the wiring harness that plugs into the low brake fluid sensor. And right now it will have low brake fluid since the lines are disconnected. Now under the dash, let's see, flashlight. That is where the brake booster mounts. Those look to be 13 or 14. I won't know until I get a little further in, and it looks like the intermediate shaft has to be removed from here. This is a 13 millimeter. It'll slide up into itself, and then you can gain access to that top bolt, or top nut right there. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get in there. Not easily anyways. You may be able to use a swivel to gain access to it, but honestly, it's just as easy to remove the intermediate shaft. Take this loose. Then the brake booster comes out the front. After everything is removed under the dash, or not the dash, but under the hood, that brake booster should just fall right out. And the new one second, let me pause and I'll come back. Instead of buying a $600 one, this is the part number for the Cardone one. It is an unloaded power brake booster, 54-77217. Just so you can see here, the end of this rod is rounded. There's 4 nuts that mount it via studs. Wrong side. Here's the studs. Leave that on. Leave this on. And I'm going to assume that the nuts that are inside now are the same thread pattern as this. Otherwise they would have or should have supplied new nuts. If they didn't, I'll have to go buy some. They have to be locking nuts or nylon nuts. yeah, that's pretty much it. After this tray is completely out, I'll be able to move the wiring harness out of the way to gain access to those bolts back there. Take the ABS pump completely off, and then take the master cylinder completely off. And then from the inside, I'll take those 4 nuts off and that 1 bolt for the intermediate shaft. Then it's reversal. Maybe making it easier for the next time you have to do it, or whoever has to do it. Engineers suck, just so you know. I hope there's many Jeep engineers that are looking at this, or Fiat, since this is a Fiat engine. This is not a Jeep engine at all, otherwise it would be a 4.0. I think this is the multi-air. Well, I don't want to move all of that stuff, so I think it's multi-air. Also, just the other day I had to do this. I think I actually made a video of it. Replacing the thermostat housing, as well as the thermostat. That is the biggest pain in the neck ever. So if you're watching this, to be able to get an idea on how to do it, there is another video. But to reference it real quick, there's 3 8mm bolts and 1 10mm bolt that you have to fight with in order to get that thing off of there. The 10mm bolt is the biggest pain because you can't see it. Putting it back on, I didn't put that bolt in because you can't really get to it, and I'm not entirely sure how they expect you to be able to gain access to it if you can't get to it. Also, this vacuum pump for the brake booster has to come off in order to gain access down there. These are 13mm. Do not move that cog that's inside of there. It has to go right back in its same position. Before doing all of this work to replace the brake booster, make sure you're getting vacuum. You just disconnect the line off of here, start it up, and if you hear it pulsating through here, it's getting vacuum. And if it is getting vacuum, your other cause is back there. I did a couple different tests to be able to make sure that that was the issue. And the one test was there is a wiring harness here that connects to a sensor. If you're a GM guy, you know what these are because they have the same exact ones on GM, which I have one over there. It's got the same thing on it. So the one that I put on came off of the Sebring here just to test it out. These are pretty generic, so just put it into the brake booster that's on the Jeep. The other end of this is way too big to fit that PCV connection, so I ended up making it work. I used this, slid it off inside of that hole right there, and connected it to a vacuum pump for an air conditioner. It never pulled vacuum, although it had a perfect seal, so the brake booster was bad. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.